So that's that, and I think just a bit about ourselves and how we got involved. So I have been interested in the oceans all my life. I've had a passion for them. I came up with an idea of sort of surveying plastics along a beach, just to see how much is washing up for myself. And then I thought I'd create awareness by doing, the scientific surveys that currently exist, as well as just sort of gathering the plastics up for a visual reference. And then pretty soon I found that, it would take hours to do a survey of a beach, and you could only do a short area, like 100 meters or so, and then that just wouldn't lend itself to gathering that sort of big data set and building that big picture. And then I was just getting interested in the drones at the time, and then we sort of came across the idea of using drones, and we asked, could the drones survey the beaches? And it obviously can, and it's proven so far. We've got some great images online. We've uploaded 67,000, and we've got a few more thousand to go. And so far, we've had 450,000 classifications online from 2,800 volunteers, which is just completely blown our minds. And it's amazing how that citizen science element, which is another very important strand in the project, is that engagement and finding a solution with people and getting them involved in that, how it's just really taken off. And that's just over 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow, just under 2 weeks, sorry, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow. And we're getting messages online saying, oh, we didn't know, you'd see those sort of plastics there. We didn't know, you could find that sort of stuff on the beaches, or they might say, oh, we find different stuff on the beach, on our beaches and that. And then we've also engaging people to try and encourage people to come down on the beaches and do cleans themselves if they live near a beach. It's just that all you need is a small bag in 2 minutes, and you might have a massive impact. And so, and then the sort of third strand is sort of storytelling and putting that into a message for people, which Ellie, who's sitting here with me, is an expert and award-winning filmmaker and drone pilot in. I don't know if just handing it over to Ellie now.
Hi everyone, I am currently driving, so apologies if I don't make the most coherent sense. So for me, I'm a drone pilot and filmmaker, so for me the storytelling element is really important, and it's something that I've worked for many, many years in education, trying to develop narrative and storytelling to encourage people to have much more of a personal connection to the natural world, the world around us, and the problems that are being caused by things in our society, whether that be conservation issues or healthcare issues. Plastic, of course, combines both of those things. There's many issues with the plastic situation at the moment, not only from a biodiversity point of view, in terms of conservation of our beautiful beaches and the oceans and the wildlife in those oceans, but also the knock-on effect that has on human health because of our reliance on seafood and our reliance on the supply. So it has a direct effect on toxicity in human health. And then, of course, it affects our society and our economy as well because of the industries that we rely on in terms of both plastic manufacturing and, of course, things like fishing. So it's something that really affects all levels of society. And even if you don't particularly care about whales and dolphins, you should be interested in the plastics issue from the point of view of your own human health or from the point of view of your economy. It's also a story that is global. It has multiple scales from individual people we've met on small beaches here who've been seeing the devastation get worse over 20, 30, 40 years of their life. And those individual, very personal anecdotes combined with, obviously, a national scale crisis in the UK. And then, of course, that expands out across the world. And we're hoping eventually to take this globally and to use the data from it across all countries. The benefit of it being such a scientifically robust methodology and technology we're using is that it is entirely highly repeatable everywhere in the world. And features for motorways, railways, reservoirs, lakes, essentially anywhere that plastic deposition may build up. And so building that interactive map is highly visual, and of course telling that story through film, which we're hoping to do eventually, and through an online community such as the really dedicated people at Zuma, is something that I'm really keen to help to push out through, especially the younger generations, in classrooms and conferences and seminars and webinars such as this.
Sorry, guys, it's Peter again. I think you've just lost Ellie at the end there.
Okay, yeah. If that was the ending, that's fine. Thank you very much for taking the time to present, to speak here. Now we'll move on to the Q&A. So, unless you have something else to add, Peter, I'm not sure.
No, I mean, I think Ellie covered. So there's the three main sort of four main outputs are the open data, the algorithm, the storytelling and filmmaking, and the sort of educational aspect, essentially, of marine litter. And you know, we've got a unique ability to tell it through drone technology, which is why our sort of start line is vision from the sky. And just finally, with the applications, I'll reel off some real quick ones. Local government councils can help them identify and clean beaches much more efficiently and effectively. A drone is much more efficient than 5 volunteers coming down to a beach. It could be useful for input into scientific models, and indeed we're working with oceanographers at Imperial University in London about how we can tie in with their verifying their ocean models. It also helps businesses if they want to locate plastics and hotspots for plastics. They could use the drone to find beaches that are susceptible and when they might be susceptible to plastic depositions. So potentially they could harvest those plastics. And we estimate in 5 to 10 years, as do our science advisors, that satellites may have the ability, the resolution to be able to use the algorithm at sort of centimeter, 2 centimeter level to detect plastics. And I think that's it. I'll just leave it there. That's okay.
Excellent, great. Thank you very much, Peter. So, at this time, let's move on to a quick Q&A session. You know, if you have questions for either Peter or Walace, you know, feel free to, you know, say something, or you could type it out in the chat. I'll just begin. I have a quick question for Peter, actually, for the plastic tide. Are you guys planning perhaps to even in the future think of solutions to actually pick up the plastics, like perhaps using robotics? That's kind of what struck me while I was listening to the work you're doing, that would be almost like a natural next step.
I mean, that's the holy grail, really. We've a partner in the project, a friend in the project who's been involved in advising us from the start. He's a robotics expert himself. You know, the complications around that, that's what initially what I thought as well. When we looked into it, you know, how would you, if you setting our algorithms to distinguish what is plastic and what is litter. I mean, it's the first step. You know, the next step would be, okay, identifying what type of litter, and there are potential ways forward in doing that, so that might be what we look at next. We're also looking at practical applications along the Thames on the litter scanning, but going back to your question, you know, you then need to have some sort of device to sort of ascertain what type of material it is, whether it's a soft piece of material, whether it's a hard piece, because then that would dictate to the robotic arm, if you have one, attached, what sort of grip to apply. Then obviously there's the complications of getting the drone down to then grapple with that object and how that affects the flight dynamics of the drone. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say, there are a lot of technical and engineering challenges in that. And, we are tackling the very first one with this project, basically. And I don't know if Ellie has anything to add to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't actually hear the question, but I'm sort of assuming from Pete's answer what it was. Essentially, collecting the plastic, picking up the waste after the plastic's been detected, is not really the major problem, because there are so many volunteers and so many people who are willing to go out and clean the beaches. It's targeting the distribution of where to send them and the best, most efficient use of those very willing volunteers. And of course, that could always be better scale. We'd love to go down with hundreds of people and diggers and buckets and boats and what have you. But I think the time and the money and the technology that would be required to make the drones capable of picking up plastics would be better spent in educating and educating with preventative techniques to try and shift people, whether that's manufacturers making biodegradable plastics and members of the public having better monitoring and perhaps better even discipline or punishment for people who litter. It'd be better to spend those resources there and then use our technology and our data about where the plastics are to send the groups of the volunteers and the local councils and the local cleanup teams, whether those governmental or voluntary, to the right beaches at the right time.
Very, very interesting. Thank you for that. That's fascinating, to be honest. So you haven't I'm not sure if you may have mentioned it, but when you create you create maps of like where these plastic debris are, and then you post these publicly that then people can go and volunteers can go and clean up the beach.
Yeah, I mean that's the aim with the algorithm, is to using the algorithm to detect and build a picture up of patterns of marine litter and accumulation. So then, as you said, you map that for volunteers. So it may be after a storm event, certain beaches are much more susceptible to plastic litter than other beaches. But as Ellie said, it also really helps to raise awareness of those people who are not on the coast, who don't see the sea and who are sort of largely oblivious of it, of the impacts of, poor litter, poor waste management, and wasteful use of plastics and litter. So yes, I mean, that would be the sort of aim, and it's perhaps something we're looking into doing with the Thames River estuary, with plastics washing up on the beaches, on the tidal foreshores there.